over and over again, I hear from my guests that learning how to get other people to help you grow is one of the best investments of your time and energy to help you optimize. Hi, it's Melanie Benson Strick here, small business optimizer and your host in this weekly podcast. And I've got a guest here with me today who's a friend of mine that I've known over the years. And we're going to talk about a little tweak you can make in your business that's going to bring you huge profits and really be able to help you grow exponentially. But first, let me introduce Lisa Manyon. Now, Lisa Manyon is known as the business marketing architect, and she's a content strategist for mission-driven entrepreneurs and business owners. She's the creator of New Marketing Model for Success, using her challenge solution invitation. I've seen her talk about this over and over and over again. I love it. And hopefully we'll be able to get her to reveal a little bit about how you can use that technique to optimize your own business. So Lisa, thanks for coming on the show this week and sharing with us a little bit behind the scenes of what's worked for you to be able to, what I like to say, optimize your business success.
Well, thanks. It's great to be here, and it's always fun to share tips with other people so they can grow their business too, because one of the things that I have learned is we can't do it alone, no matter how efficient we think we are, even if we have kind of a type A control-ish personality.
What? No.
Right.
Well, let's get a little bit of history about Lisa first. And it's funny, as long as I've known you and is all the different circles that we've crossed paths in, I don't even know that I fully know your backstory. So, what was your inspiration to start the business that you're in now?
Well, it's interesting, and I will give you a bit of history that takes me way back. But for as long as I can remember, I've been drawn to the written word and to marketing and advertising. So even when I was 5 years old watching Captain Kangaroo on a black and white TV screen with rabbit ear antennas, and I know I'm totally dating myself, but commercials would come on and I would think, oh my gosh, they're missing the mark. And even then there was this intuitive sixth sense that I had about what works and what doesn't work to really connect with people. So fast forward throughout, the history of my life, and in high school and in college I was the advertising manager and a lead reporter for the school papers, and then off into the real world, I worked at nonprofits and helped with their publicity and PR and a lot of writing projects and managing programs to serve the low-income population. And then I moved into the marketing and advertising arena, working for radio stations and newspapers and advertising agencies as well. So I'm a certified radio marketing master. I've worked in every single medium. So the cool thing about what I do is that I can actually apply this to whatever type of marketing and advertising you're doing. That's not really what I focus on, but it gives me a really interesting background. So the reason I started my business was that I'd really reached the top of my career at the advertising agency that I was working for, and it was a great experience. And at the same time, I knew I needed to do things on my own terms, and I knew there was something bigger for me. And I wasn't going to grow any more than I had grown there. I had just, that was it. I was working with some great clients and some really great people, but there was just something more and different for me. And honestly, working for someone else and working 60 to 70-hour weeks, lining someone else's pocket, just wasn't feeling good to me anymore.
Yeah.
And I needed to do something more challenging, which owning your own business certainly is.
That is so true. And it's funny, like a lot of the people that I know that are really great copywriters came out of the advertising world. So it's interesting to see that trend. So if you could boil it down to like a nugget for us of what is it that you would say, as a copywriter, as a marketing strategist, like what is the biggest problem that you have learned to help people solve in running their own business?
Well, what's really interesting is I'm blessed to have a very intuitive nature. So for me, I tend to work mostly with the mission-driven entrepreneurs and business owners. They're the people with a really gigantic mission, but they struggle to turn it into a marketing message. And I
wouldn't know anything about that.
I know, right? I talk in both worlds. So I'm able to translate the big mission into marketing speak that isn't too salesy or pushy, that really connects with their ideal client. So I'd say that's the biggest challenge that I solve for them, and beyond that, I help them put it into a cohesive strategy that really works to support their mission. And
Lisa, it's so funny that we're talking about this because every day, all day long, I get to meet, connect with, and even interview potential clients who are struggling with that. They want to make an impact. In fact, I just spent a whole day at the Life Changing Legacy where there was like a room full of people who have these big desires to make a difference in the world. But as I was listening to them try and explain it, just everything would get stuck and bogged down, and we get in our head, or we're so passionate and we see this big thing, but we're explaining to someone else and their eyes are glazing over. What is somebody, let's maybe get into a little bit of a technique before we pull the curtains back on you. Like, what is something that someone could learn to do so that they can grab someone, they can really engage them and get them to understand what you're doing, and whether it's a fit or not, at least to create that magnetic interest.
Well, that's a really good question, and I mean, what I've learned after working with, hundreds upon hundreds, probably thousands now that I think about it, people who struggle with this very thing, is that they're really just turned off by marketing techniques, and marketing
Mm.
doesn't feel good to them because of a
So
lot
they
of
feel
techniques.
slimy or something.
Exactly, a lot
Yeah.
of techniques that have been taught, and especially in the copywriting and marketing arena, the problem, agitate, and solve approach just doesn't work for people who are
Mm.
um, more conscious, who really want to make a big difference because it feels manipulative to them. And in
I
fact,
get
it
that.
is.
Yeah.
So that's the best advice that I can give, is to just realize that marketing is truly all about relationships, and just speak from your heart, and be concise. Though make sure that you've articulated what you want to do in a way that is addressing the challenge of your ideal clients, clearly offering your solution, and then extending that friendly invitation. And that's the challenge, solution, and invitation formula that I talk about a lot, but it really does simplify things. It brings
Yeah.
relationships back to marketing. It's straight up. There's no smoke and mirrors. There's no manipulative tactics. It's just, let's have a conversation. So this is your challenge, really. Well, this is a solution that I have, and if you're interested, then we can have a conversation about it, or whatever your technique might be to move someone forward. But it doesn't have to be that pushy traditional marketing and advertising approach, which in fact is not really working that well anymore.
One of the things I learned, because I was that person, and I still think by nature I'm probably less a marketer and less comfortable in that than many people are. But when I first got into this, my heart was so full of all the things I wanted to do, and I wanted to help people, and I would think about how to communicate it, and I would I saw the people glazing over. I felt them not really getting it, and I would get so into the benefit, I'm sorry, the features of what I was doing, that I would lose the energy and the what I call like that magnetism with a potential client, because
Mm-hmm.
they're like, oh yeah, okay, that's nice. And do you think people make a lot of mistakes in that way, where they get so focused on their process, or the lingo of their trade, and that like what they've learned to do, that they're not really pulling people in that need them?
Yeah, that's really true. We do, and I'm guilty sometimes of using jargon that people don't understand as well, and I have to bring myself back and say, look, let's just get to the heart of the matter. What is the biggest challenge that someone's facing?
Mm-hmm.
And talk about the solution. It's really that simple, because we're taught in many of the marketing programs and advertising training and everything out there to list our features and benefits and all that. And that's interesting and good, but what's really going to draw people in is what you can do to serve them, how you're going to make their life better in some way. And
Yeah.
realistically, not in the big bold promise that isn't true, or not in selling hope that is never going to materialize, but in being straight up and honest in what you're doing, and saying, look, it's either for you or it isn't, and you're going to know. I mean, if you have to convince someone that they should work with you, they shouldn't be working with you.
I agree. I'm so in agreement. I love that you just said that. Like, if you have to convince somebody, because I came from the old school where it's like hard sell them, figure out what you need to say to get them in, and I'm like, oh my God, no, I don't want to deal with that. Like, I don't want to be working with somebody who doesn't want to work with me. Like, if I got to convince them that hard, it just feels like it's going to be a hard row ahead.
It is, and it's funny because I've been through. I mean, we've mentored with some of the same people and been through different trainings. Not at the same time, but we've mentored with a lot of the same people, which has been really interesting. And I have a lot of admiration and respect for them. But the one thing that always really fell off in my, heart of hearts and soul of souls, was that whole problem agitate, and problem agitate, solution formula. It didn't feel right to me. And what I've learned is if it doesn't feel right, it's probably not right. And
For
so
you.
I learned a lot of those same techniques, and some of them are helpful and can apply. I'm not saying that they don't, and I'm not saying that they don't still work in some audiences, but you have to know exactly who your ideal client is and what they're going to respond to and who you really want to work with. And oftentimes I talk about choosing your ideal clients and really
Hmm.
identifying them instead of chasing not so ideal clients, which we've all done. And when you use those hard sell manipulative tactics, you kind of are chasing people. You're kind of trying to manipulate them into the sale. And I don't know, it just, for me, it doesn't feel right. And so I finally got to a place where I was comfortable enough and confident enough in following my own intuition and just going, hey, if this doesn't feel right, it's probably not right, and there's a different way. And I'd always been, you know, doing things in a different way, but I hadn't really named it. And then when I named the formula, people are really just breathing this collective sigh of relief saying, wow, I don't have to do it the way everyone is telling me to do it. I can actually do this differently and it feels better and it's getting results.
Hmm.
So,
That's the key, really.
yeah, it is.
And let's, I was thinking somebody might not be familiar with these two formulas. So, problem, agitate, solution. Can you give an example of what that might sound like in marketing language?
Well, here's the thing. You're gonna know it when you see it. It's the really aggressive marketing where they focus on your problem. And I don't know about you, but when someone points out my problems, I get a little defensive. So
Yeah,
this
so
is like,
problem like I feel like I don't make enough money. So that might be a problem.
yeah,
The
it could.
agitate would be to give examples or to like really dig into that and make them feel that pain.
Well, exactly. Like, so, okay, you don't feel like you're making enough money. It probably really hurts when you can't pay your bills on time or you
Hmm.
can't feed your kids or whatever it might be. Well, these are things that we all know, right? And those are emotions. Definitely, emotions are important in advertising. But I challenge people to use the positive emotions instead of this problem, agitate, and solve emotional approach because it's like you're pointing out the problem, you're agitating those pain points, and then you're coming in like a big marketing hero to save the day. Well, if you're being manipulative, you're really not saving the day, right?
Yeah. So let's translate that same problem that someone might be feeling, which is a very real challenge that many
It
people have.
is.
Let's translate it to the formula you like to use. Let's give an example of if someone was not feeling like they were making enough money, how would that, maybe just like in one lines, how would that translate to your way of doing it?
So I would then instead of pointing out, I mean the challenge is a bit of a problem, but you don't have to agitate the pain point. So you can say something along the lines of, so we're not making if you're not making enough money and you'd really like to learn a proven formula that can help you connect with your ideal clients so that you can make more money. Here's how you can do it. Let's have a conversation. Very simple and easy, like you and I are having this
Right.
conversation.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be that manipulative. And guess what? It probably feels energetically a little better.
Mm.
Instead of someone making you feel bad and pointing out that maybe you can't feed your kids or something else might be going on. You know what? We feel bad enough as it is. There's so much weirdness going on in the world today that we don't need to perpetuate it. And in fact, I think it's our duty, especially if we're working in the marketing and advertising industry, to change that and to shift it because it's one of the pieces of humanity that is really broken.
So this is great. I love that we could give an example of this because, I'm a very logic, like I have to see it in order to kind of take it in. So being able
Mm-hmm.
to see the difference, I can feel how much more energetically like I like the idea of moving towards hope and like,
Right.
ooh, it feels so like it's like I want to shrink away from the first one. So that's a great example. And so let's just say a lot of people are challenged. Like we both know millions of people who this is an area that's hard for them, like to know how to translate what they do so intuitively and passionately. But I know that that's not the only challenge that people have when really learning how to turn their passions and the things that are in their genius into a business. And I'm wondering, what would you say has been one of your biggest challenges in learning to have a successful business of your own?
Well, we all have strengths and weaknesses, and one of my weaknesses is that I don't love numbers, right? I understand they're
Mm.
important, but I should make money and spend it. And for a while, I spent a lot of time trying to figure out QuickBooks, and I had no business doing any of that. So I would say my biggest challenge was letting go of things that I shouldn't be doing, getting the support that I need so that I'm focusing on my areas of genius as opposed to struggling with things that make me want to kind of pull my hair out.
Mm-hmm.
So that was big, and that really, segues into getting all of the right support team in place so that I'm supported, so that I can work my magic with my ideal clients instead of, you know, spreading myself too thin, quite honestly. And I'm still learning. I think it's a continual process as we grow our businesses because as we get well, as we grow and as our vision changes, then our team will change, the support we need will change, and that's also been a big challenge. Although I understand that change is constant, embracing it with grace and ease has been a challenge.
I love that. I actually just wrote that in a blog post yesterday. How one of my mindsets that had to change in order to be able to grow was the to be able to get that you can have success with grace, ease, and effortlessness. And I'm starting to hear a lot more people like wake up to that as well.
Well, it's true. I mean, and here's the thing I always say, it's not a matter of if your team will implode, it's when, because it happens.
Mm.
There's turnover. And I remember when I've added another location. So right now I'm talking to you from my Magic Writers condo in Ashland, Oregon. But I was in the process of moving across 3 states and bringing a lot of my stuff from my home in Idaho here, and my team imploded in the middle of this, 3-state trek. And normally I probably would have freaked out, and now it's happened so many times, and I'm like, you know what? Okay, it's not a good fit anymore energetically for either of us. There's nothing wrong, but they're moving and growing, and you have to realize that that's what's going to happen sometimes with your team members as well. They are going to evolve as people and want to do something different, and that's cool. Rarely do you have the same person, except for my bookkeeper, of course, she's fantastic and has been with me for years now, and that's lovely, and that's her passion and what she wants to do. But in general, a lot of people like to change in advance, and so I had to just realize, okay, it's going to be okay. There's nothing I can do about it in the middle of this journey. I'm just going to take a deep breath, relax, and know that the solution will come, and it has. So
I have found that the evolution of us as an entrepreneur oftentimes influences the evolution of our team. And if we're growing really fast, it really can send them into implosion if they aren't, as versatile and adaptable. Or if, we are often very strong as entrepreneurs. We're pushing ourselves to grow fast, 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 but our teams are not necessarily designed to move as fast. So that can also affect
right.
that implosion. But I love what you said, and I've actually found myself in this place too, where who you are being as their leader and how you react to what happens is dictating the level of peace, ease, and grace that you get to experience. And our way of dealing with these things that are going to happen anyway, we are solely responsible for the experience we're having. And I love that you said, like, I had to just choose how I was going to respond to that.
It makes a big difference. And, it has taken some time because I used to be more reactive instead of proactive. And now I just realize that everything happens for a reason. And I've kind of always known that, except when it's happening to you, it's not as easy to embrace.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's true. And I love what you said about, who we're being and how we're reacting really does set the tone for everything. And it does. And as we continue to grow and evolve, our team will as well. And also, I think handling those changes with grace and ease and wishing them well is really important. I hear from many people that I work with and colleagues and clients, that it really throws them off when these changes occur and they take it very personally. And it's business is personal. I'm never going to say that it isn't, but it's really not personally about you. It's their own personal journey. They're going to move on and grow, and you have to have a backup plan actually, and be prepared to have your systems in place, to have your job descriptions in place, and have all of these things in place so that someone else can step in and say, oh, yeah, I can handle this for you, and they know exactly what they're supposed to do.
Sounds like one of the things you've learned along the way, and I don't know if you would use this words, is how to be behaviorally flexible, like how to adapt in a constantly growing environment, and how profound that is to you being able to continue to grow because you're not, getting into failure mode, and taking things really personally and making them mean that something's bad or wrong. It's literally like, hey, this stuff's going to happen. Let's just figure out how to get through it and make it work better. And that is such a huge mindset, I think, that allows us to exponentially grow rather than getting stuck and quagmired down in problems and things that feel so big.
It's true, and I think having those systems in place helps too.
Like,
I mean, it's been trial and error, of course,
sure.
and we learn as we grow, which is how we can have this conversation to share these tips with other people. But it really is important. You know, I use an online tool, Basecamp, to do my project management, and now anytime there's any change, the new team member can go into a very specific project and task and see the exact steps to handle it and what we do in any given situation. And it's really been amazing because I didn't have this all together at the very beginning. I can tell you that. There were a lot of times when I wasn't having the team document things as they needed to, and then suddenly there would be a change and I would have to scramble around and get things ready. And I think it's just part of us growing and realizing, okay, we have to step up and be better leaders, period, whether you want to or not. And I honestly, although I've got certificates in management and offsite management and all these different things from especially my nonprofit days when I used to manage, large teams in multiple counties, I don't know that I love it. So I've had to embrace it and put systems in place so it's easier for me to do.
Hmm. So let's talk about two things. I want to get into some of the real practical pieces that you just said, because I think personally this is where so many of us resist this for a long time, and then once we get to the other side of it, it's so much better. But we need to form a picture of what that looks like. First of all, what are a couple of things that you learned to delegate and outsource that's been really beneficial to the business?
Well, one of the things I talked about already is my bookkeeping and all of
Hmm.
that. That was like seriously the best thing I ever did. I sleep much more peacefully at night now.
Yeah, me too.
But also my some of my email. So for example, from my website, when people send an email, it goes to my team and they're able to filter that and
Hmm.
review that and then pass on what I need to respond to personally. And that was a really big thing for me. And again, I think it goes back to my kind of type A control freakish behavior, and I'm very self-aware of this, so it's something I've been working on. But um, I really felt like I needed to see everything as it came in, and then I realized that's just not possible. I get hundreds upon hundreds of email every day. There's no way that I'm going to be able to monitor all of that incoming plus everything that I actually have to spend brain time on to answer already.
Right.
It's coming to me directly to my private email, so it's I think that was a really big thing for me in delegation. And I've been doing that for several years now, and it really has helped. But it was a shift for me because there was some sort of responsibility or just not wanting to let go, whatever it was that I had to move through in my own mindset to realize, listen, if I'm going to grow, and I am, there's no doubt about it, I'm going to continue to grow because that's just in my nature, then I have to have the support that I need so I can be of true service. If I'm answering email all day long, I'm never going to get any client work done.
Yeah, I definitely found value in that. I'll add one to the conversation, and that is I trained somebody to run all of the logistics and administrative side of my coaching programs. So now in a way, I've taken the part off that I'm not as good at, or tends to burn me out or drain me.
Mm-hmm.
And, I have a partner, so to speak, in running the program. And my people that go through my programs are so much more supported, and they can go to my program coordinator for the logistics, and they come to me for the content and the back end. And oh my God, it was such a godsend because she does all the technical stuff, she does all the postings, all the email communication, all the technical support, and even like dealing with bills and getting stuff paid. It just, that really was a huge shift for me to do that.
I'm glad you brought up the tech piece because honestly, that we can get so caught up in the to-dos and the tech aspect of our businesses, and I have help with the tech area as well. That's not my forte. I understand how to utilize and leverage technology, but I'm often told to get the heck out of my back end on my site.
Well, I find, sorry, I had to just check something. I was making sure that we were recording properly.
That's okay. I know
I
it's
got a little distracted there for a second, but I make a rule. I don't learn the technology. If I know how to do the technology, then there's this little piece in my brain that says, well, if I can do it real fast, I'll just do it. And I personally think part of optimizing and really being able to perform more effectively, to be able to leverage your time, to be able to exponentially grow, is to get anything off your plate that somebody can do better or faster
Hmm.
or cheaper than you.
Yes.
And that really means you have to understand, like, what are you worth to the business when you're doing what you do best? And, that's a whole big thing. I know we don't have time to get into that today, but I think when you really start to live and breathe that every day, and you are absolutely committed to living that mantra, if you will, it's a hugely liberating place to kind of hone in.
That's so important, and I really don't know how to do a lot of the tech things. That's why I'll go in, the back end of my blog or website or in my shopping cart and look at things, and the team's like, get out of there, just
Yeah.
get out.
Yeah. That's
Fine.
good. They've got you trained well,
We'll
Lisa.
send, we'll send you reports. Go away. I'm like,
That's
perfect.
awesome.
I will.
So, I personally think that, especially if you've been in business for a while or that you've been doing what you're doing for a while, there is a moment in time where we kind of have like a game changing moment. And it usually comes from learning something or experiencing something, maybe even like a decision that we make. Have you had one of those game changing moments in the trajectory of your business?
Honestly, the biggest game changer for me was owning my own voice, which I know sounds a little bit funny, but because that's what I teach others. But when I seriously named my challenge solution and invitation formula, and it took on a life of its own and was featured in Inc. magazine and now two best-selling books alongside Richard Branson and Jessica Jackley and Ariana Huffington and some really amazing thought leaders,
Hmm.
my big aha moment was, oh wow, what I have created is really huge. It's a game changer. It's really changing the history of marketing, which was my intent. I put that intention out there and in place, and I knew that something needed to happen. But when it happened, and it's taken on all of this momentum, like a life of its own, really, I know that I'm on to something really huge, and it's time for me to get my book done and really be serious about owning this and helping people make these shifts too. So for me, I'm really humble actually, and I always take for granted my knowledge and what I do, and I tend to keep myself pretty grounded and pretty real. But I was really overwhelmed with all of the response and the responsibility of kind of leading this charge in shifting the way we market. So for me, that was really the big aha moment. Like, wow, I have to step up even more. I mean, I really feel like I've stepped up a lot, but it's time for me to own that even more. And for me, it's a mental thing, and it's just a sense of responsibility too, I guess, in the bigger picture and in my big mission.
That makes total sense. I love that too because I think it's the difference between being the best at doing something that a lot of people do versus having a system that people know is unique to you. And it's
Right.
almost like you get elevated in your credibility, your authority, and you're seen as a thought leader. And again, there's nothing wrong with the other one. I just think that it's almost like there's a quickening that takes place, and everything gets really like the flow kicks into a higher gear.
It's true, and what I tell people is, if I had not really owned my voice and listened to um, that stirring inside my soul and my heart and also my brain, and knowing that something was off, and if I hadn't have questioned a lot of the people out there that are teaching different techniques that I just don't agree with, um, this wouldn't have happened. And
Hmm.
so I had a lot of self doubt to begin with because I had these feelings inside of me, and I knew something was off and that I was doing things differently, and I knew there was another way that was going to help people. But I also had that little voice in my head saying, who do you think you are to
Mm.
challenge these other people, right? And it's not that I'm challenging them as people. I'm just offering another way to do things. I'm not saying that the other techniques cannot work. They can, but I'm saying they don't resonate with the people I attract. And when the people that I'm meant to work with and serve hear my formula and how I approach things, they want to work with me, and they're getting great results. So I think there's plenty of business to go around. There's always going to be different techniques and different ways to do things, but you have to kind of trust your instinct on it. And so if you feel like you have a really big idea and you know that you have a solution that's going to change things, don't be afraid to try it, because it really could take on a life of its own. And I'm really glad that I wasn't, well, I guess that I didn't give in to fear. That's the best way to say that.
Well said. Great nugget. Don't give in to fear. I love it. So, speaking of mantras and little quotes that we say to ourselves, do you have a favorite mantra or quote that kind of acts like a guiding force for you as you're challenging yourself to get out there in a bigger way?
I do, and I don't know who this was originally coined by, or I would completely give credit where credit is due, but it is never resist a temporary inconvenience when it will result in a permanent improvement.
Ooh, never resist a temporary inconvenience when it results in a permanent
Improvement.
improvement. Love that.
Yeah, and I think it really embodies just stretching ourselves because guess what? We are going to feel the new term that I'm using is stretchy. We're going to feel a little stretchy sometimes, and it's that
Stretchy.
uncomfortable place when you're getting ready to grow and move and you don't feel like you have it all in control, but you know there's something that you're stepping into, so to speak. So um, I've just started calling it stretchy, and
Stretchy.
a lot of my colleagues and friends that are in mastermind groups together will say, "Oh yeah, we've got that stretchy feeling again. Something big's happening."
I like that. I like stretchy because it's like I keep thinking of stretching the rubber band.
hmm
Yeah. How often are you breaking your rubber bands?
Oh boy, I push myself pretty hard, so it's pretty regularly.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've really started doing a lot of things that I didn't want to do. For one, here we are having a video interview. I don't do a lot of video interviews because coming from the advertising agency arena, I was the person behind the camera, not in front of the camera. You know, helping with
Sure.
produce and direct commercials and things like that. So I've been really, really good at being the behind the scenes person and with stepping into the thought leader position and sharing more about my philosophies, that's not going to fly. So that's been definitely stretchy and there's a lot of rubber bands breaking.
I just want to go deeper into this for just 1 second because I am realizing as we're talking, so many people freak out when they're being stretched. And,
Yeah.
as we're thinking of stretching this rubber band, there's two possibilities. You let the rubber band go back to its original shape and you keep things where they are, or you let the rubber band break. And that's where you really get to expand to a whole nother level of consciousness, a whole nother level of power, a whole nother level of, results and effectiveness. But Lisa, when you're in the stretchy place and you know you're being stretched and that rubber band's about to break, which oftentimes does hurt a little bit,
It does.
what for you, like, first of all, how do you know you're in the place? What's the experience that you have inside of you or maybe outside of you?
Well, it's really mostly internal. It's just this uncomfortable feeling of not having full control. And again, when you're a type A kind of control freakish person like I am, I like to have things in their right place and in order. And I realize that that can't always happen. So I feel it internally for sure. And it feels a little unsettling, not necessarily in a bad way. It's kind of a combination between excitement and fear, but not the scary fear. Kind of like a roller coaster fear, if you like roller coasters. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
exhilarating.
yeah, this is going to be fun and something new is happening. So, the best way for me to move through that is a lot of trust and a lot of faith. I have ultimate faith that things are going to turn out the way they're going to be. And the other thing about me is I tend to maintain a really positive attitude, and I turn obstacles into opportunities. So even if something is feeling stretchy and uncomfortable, and maybe something comes out of that I didn't expect, I'm really, really good at turning things around.
That's great. I love it. Thank you for sharing that because, I think that it's a great study in human behavior and, being able to activate deeper levels of potential inside of us. If we can make peace and accept when we're being stretched that it's actually an okay feeling, because I think everything in us wants to make it stop because it's like, this hurts, this is scary. And if you really understand the purpose of it and you allow these shifts to happen, really amazing things are on the other side. And I like that, kind of just ties into the quote you said earlier. So Lisa, this has been awesome, and I love like the twists and turns that we went into today. What's next for Lisa in terms of your own career and your business?
Well, it's interesting because we're talking about the stretchy places, right? So I'm working on my own book now that I'm featured in two best-selling books. One's actually um, being translated into four different languages and is an international bestseller. So with my philosophies being featured far and wide, so to speak, it's time for me to really get my book out there.
Mm.
So I'm investigating a lot of things around that, traditional versus self-publishing. I've had my own publishing house set up for about 6 years now, knowing that this was coming. Not knowing exactly what it would look like, of course. So I'm playing with that, and I'm doing a lot more speaking and training, talking about getting out there more. I once developed a series of training seminars for the Idaho Small Business Development Center, and I'm now offering that material privately to people and going in and speaking to private masterminds. And I'll probably hold some of my own workshops and events too, but not really giant events.
Mm.
I'm kind of more of a low-key person in that sense, in that I really like to interact with people. So that's what's coming on the horizon for me.
Love it. So where can people find you, Lisa?
Oh, good question. My website is writeoncreative.com, and it's WRITEONCREATIVE.com. And there's tons of free resources on my blog there. So I would love for people to interact. I actually respond to all the comments personally. So if you have questions or comments on a post, post them.
I love that. I love that you're personal. And are you on Twitter, Facebook? Is that another place people can find
Oh,
you?
I am, yes. On Twitter, I am Right On Creative. And on Facebook, you can find me at Facebook, Right On Creative, or Lisa Manyon.
Cool. Lisa, thanks so much. I actually took some notes. I had to sit down and write a couple things down that you're talking about because there are some really great ways that you're using words to help us realize as people who are business owners and wanting to make a difference and what it is that I think we're all being called to do, which is make ourselves better so that we can have a greater impact. There's a lot of inspiration today. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. And one last thing about words, I want people to really realize that your word is your honor. So the techniques that you're using in your marketing materials are really important.
I love that way to wrap up. And I'd love to hear, like, what did you get from today? Like, if you're listening in right now and you want to share with us, you can head over to the blog at melaniebensonstrick.com. You can also share with us on the different places, like, what did you get from today? I want to know. I want to hear. And if you're listening to us on iTunes, give us a rating. Tell us what you liked about today's show. And again, thank you so much, Lisa, for being here with us. This is the Small Business Optimizer podcast, and we'll be back next week with another really, really amazing guest to share how they have optimized their business to make a greater impact and more profits. Bye, everyone.
Bye.